Scott Ross, and joining me today we got Timberwolf.
How's it going, guys?
So one of the things that we've started looking at and thinking about and trying to figure out how we can utilize it to help out everyone else out there around. And we started gathering a few people to discuss this and go over it. And just wanted to discuss some of the concepts that we'll be using in the future. Is how to make a build that is both easy to get a hold of and at the same time is very minimal on the cost. In many cases, you see what I have up right now, which is an all epic setup. This is obviously my main setup that I've used for however long that I've used it on, and it's very, very expensive to get everything up to epic. I mean, we're talking a couple million EC just to do that. So that's one of those things that we got that you always see. You always see someone recommending this build, and then if you go and look at the build, for example, in his roster, mine's going to be a little bit light because of the fact that it might still, oh, it's not set up for that. But you see that I have like Dyrene, Zmok, Kiel here. So I mean, they're all expensive duty officers. Even these rare crit chance ones, they're expensive officers. What you often don't see is a build that does not include some duty officers that are at least a couple million. In most cases, even an Oxabat build, you go looking for like a technician, for example. Some of those I've seen some technicians going for close to 6 million EC. We're going to be doing some series of videos and discussions. We're going to be doing a ship build for every single ship out there eventually. That will show you a build that is just, you may have to pay for the ship. It might be like one of the C-Store ships that we pull out. And then you just got to get all the gear, the deflector, and all the consoles. We'll be discussing some of the things that goes into making these builds so that you're not having to fork out a lot of money just to do that. So that's some of the things that we want to make sure that you guys have access to eventually down the road. That is an upcoming item here, so that you can at least have that in your pocket that's coming down the road, so that you won't have it here. And our goal is not necessarily just to get you a build that's free, but a build that is free but does 30k DPS for that particular setup. That is the ultimate end goal that we want to do for you guys. So that's some of the things that we have planned, some of the features that we'll be doing. Give you an idea of some of the things that we'll be using, because like if you've heard me say it a few times, I'll say it again. The biggest thing that happens with anything is the fact that you happen to be able to use any sort of gear, and you can still do pretty good DPS on that if you know how to fly. And from watching this video, we're hoping that you're going to learn how to fly so you can do all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's one of those things that you'll be able to see that as it comes up and be able to utilize that and make that a thing for your pocket that you can make use out of. You'll see things that will be from the missions. For example, you might happen to see us throwing in, for example, one of these Ancient Omni directional beams. That's a free item that you can go and do, plus the Obelisk Core to go along with it, because it's going to give you damage for your antiproton setup if you happen to use an antiproton setup on that. So you might see that. You might see, and some of the build, if it's a Tetrion, you might see one that uses the new Tetrion weapons that's come out. Disruptors, we got the Disruptor weapons that you can use. There's a lot of these missions here that have good stuff that is actually very, very useful, that you can set up yourself with a new build that isn't going to take away your all your money that you have and still be able to do good damage. I have a build right now that uses Mark 10 stuff that was doing 30k DPS in a Fleet Galaxy X Dreadnought. So there's plenty of ways to get around some of the stuff. I mean, like right here, we have an AC crit D ×2 dual heavy cannon. Not the greatest weapon to be using, but a dual heavy cannon can definitely do some damage and get you into the 20 or 30k. So that's some of those things that we're hoping to utilize and get you up into, and show you some different items and different ideals that you can be using to take advantage of some of this stuff. Some consoles that may not necessarily be the ideal, like what I have here, but it will definitely be something that will get you there. I mean, even 20% is only 70% less than what these offer. And then if you get the regular consoles that are for weapons, they're only, I think they're like what, 10, somewhere between 7 and 10% less than the damage that they give. The biggest thing that they don't give is that critical chance that is huge. So I mean, we're still working at some of the things that we're going to allow in these builds. We might say, hey, fleet gear, you can get fleet gear, you can't get
disruptors. You're looking at disruptors.
Disruptors is going to be huge. You know, I mean,
a lot of options for those.
Oh heck yeah! I mean, you know, one of the theory builds, let's give you guys some ideas of some items that we've been looking at for our own cells because we have access to them, is using what you could call a rainbow selection of disruptors, i.e. like the resonant disruptor with the coalition disruptors
and crafted disruptors. But I will say the free version of that, because we have been looking at it, is the resonant disruptor in the console that you see, that you just saw, and then the plasma disruptor weapons that are from, if I remember correctly, the Guardian of Forever mission. And those are beam arrays that will give you a huge accuracy boost if you're running all 7 of them. You know, because they do have 7.5% accuracy, and they have both a, if I remember correctly, a full disruptor proc and a full plasma proc. Now the mods on them to upgrade are random, but at uncommon they are pretty decent disruptors. So they are a good option for a free build.
Yes, indeed. So that's some of the things that just to be lookout, and some of the plans that we have. We'll get you all these different builds. I mean, we can't say that there'll be free builds, but when it comes down to it, I want you guys to realize that every single ship, even though the ship changes, the ship layouts, the weapons and the consoles, they're identical to other ships of that same style. You can find a ship that has a 5-3 layout with a 3-3-5 for the consoles. That's not going to change overall. I mean, that's the Scimitar layout. The only thing that's different than the Scimitar is it's got a hanger. So, you know, you got stuff like that. Many of these ships have identical setups. If you know, you can change out to like Timbers, which has is it a 4-3-4 setup on that?
On what, the
Odyssey?
The Odyssey. Yeah, and the ship that I always use that has the same console setup as the Odyssey Tactical at T5U would be the Breen Chelgret from the Winter event. And that's also a 4-4 setup on weapons with a 4-3-4 console layout. So it's just a variation of Bridge Officer stations, but still a very good ship. And it's free, so long as you played the Winter event.
Yeah, you know, and that's one of the things. You know, there's many different ships. I mean, if we look at your the ships you can get at the end, I'm going to go into the dock here a little bit here. Hopefully, I don't have any issues. But you know, we'll go look at it, and you know, there's a lot of the ships you could look at, and they're going to have identical build layouts compared to any other ship, because the Cryptic isn't really making unique builds and layouts for every single ship. They got a cookie cutter setup basically that is only changing based upon the type of ship it is, or particular items with the ship. Now I'm a Romulan, so I'm gonna see the Romulan stuff obviously right off the bat. I mean, you look at this one here, you got a 2-1 aft and forward, and then if you go down here to the consoles, let's see where it's at. I think it's got only one of each, so that's not a good one to start off with. But every single ship here is going to have similar layouts to the end. Let's go into the tier 5s real quick. Vice Admirals, why not? So like right here, so this is a 4-3 weapon layout, and it's got 3 engineering, 3 tactical, and 3 science. So it's a 3-3-3. Which, it's not. I mean, it's a T5U, so it's a T5. So the T5U, I think it probably gains. This one here probably gains like a tactical spot. So, we can find other ships that's going to be like this. Here's one that's a 2-4-3, and it probably gains a tactical slot when it goes to T5U. I mean, the layouts are just changing just a little bit. Here's a 3-4-2, and probably the same effect that happens. 3-3-3. Okay, I'm looking at the consoles right here. It's the exact same as a ship prior to that we just saw. Remember, right here, exact same console layout. The only thing that may be changing would be the bridge officers, and even the bridge officers is going to have a more universal layout. You're going to have your things that you want that you can use easily, that you don't have to go to the exchange to buy. The only thing you might have to get from occasion to occasion will be some engineering or science. If you're a tactical, you might have to go engineering science skill that you want to get, or you happen to talk to your buddy who happens to be an engineer and happens to be able to train you that manual that you need. And in most cases you can find someone to do it. You can also often find someone like me who happens to have a little bit of everything on between all my captains, who can craft you it just by switching to a different captain. So when it comes down to it, a lot of these builds are exactly the same. Here's that one there once again. Here's a 4-3-2. We find ships that's going to have the same layouts. You're going to find that 3-4-3. That this one here, once again, I believe this one gets a tactical when it goes to T5U, because that's typically what happens. This one happens to have the commander tactical, so most commander tacticals gain the tactical console increase. So they're going to be the exact same layouts. The only thing that's going to change is the ship, how it turns, which is going to be small to minor in most cases. Sometimes you might have a ship that's got a layout like this for the consoles that might be like the Scimitar that has a much lower turn rate. So, and that's one of the things that you have. Friend of mine and running dual heavy cannons in front and turn and back on the lifetime ships, and even though his power levels are fine, he has all weapons on auto fire. His cannons just stop firing for some reason. That either is because you don't have a target, or that could be potentially a bug. I will point that out. It could be you have to have a target and you have to be in combat mode to be attacking. You can have a target but not be in combat, and your weapons won't attack. But if they're in combat and they got a target every time and it just stops shooting, that's a bug probably. You can try taking it off the auto fire and putting it back on in a different rotation and see if that works that way. Otherwise, bug report that. Most of them should be auto firing, but So getting back onto our topic here, when it comes down to it, some of the things that we're going to be doing, you're going to be seeing these videos. They might become part of the show here on Saturdays, or they might become their own new series during the week that we'll be doing. And our ultimate aim and goal is every ship that is that can be classified as an in-game ship. So from T5 on up, T5, T5U, T6, whether it's free or something that you had to pay for, we are going to get you a ship build for that is using a free setup. We even got Older Knight on with us to help us out with making some torpedo setups for you guys. And so we'll have to be discussing some of the things and some of the limitations that we want to put on this. Maybe we say, you know, Mark 12 is where we leave it at, and you don't have to worry about upgrading your stuff. And that's one of those things. We might say fleet gear is out except for this. For example, we might skip using the Science Embassy consoles. There's some of the things that we'll be looking at doing here. So, you know, that's some of the things to be thinking of and looking at here. When it comes down to it, you're going to find yourself with everything that you can do and everything that you can get it for free. You don't have to be doing, I mean, if I told you how much dilithium I use to get just the ones that's equipped, not talking these ones that's over here that's not equipped, plus what's in my overflow, which is a heck of a lot. I gotta do some gear swapping, plus the ones that's on my captains. So, you know, if you're just looking at everything that I've done just for one ship setup, ship layout, it's taking me a lot of money to get it, not money, but taking a lot of dilithium and a lot of working to get it up to where it's at. So that's one of the things to be thinking of when it comes down to it, is you don't have to necessarily spend this amount of money to get even the base level DPS. And in some cases you might not be after that DPS, but you still need to have decent gear so you can survive. So we'll show you some of those different things for like a science build. Our goal is to show you science builds and engineering builds so you can get a decent tanking setup that would be anything but the normal for just what you can get from pickups, because you don't have to necessarily get your ship geared from what you get in drops during any instance, any mission. You'll be able to, you'll learn some things that we do to do a completely free build. How many times we have to run certain missions so we can get a full beam array set up. And you can get everything you can get for free in some way, even if it's not the best in these builds that we're going to be doing. You know, and if you happen to be a PV person, unless they've changed, there was some beam arrays that I saw during the level up process that you could have gathered. That was ACC times 3 setups. So you could totally have gathered up your PvP setup so you can actually have ships that way. But once again, what it comes down to for you to get high DPS, it's not about anything other than your piloting. Your piloting is the biggest thing. I could do about 40 to 50k DPS in what I have right now with standard weapons. And the consoles and the duty officers left the same, and I can even switch some of them out to do some other things. Because it's just a matter of how you combine everything that's going to change the way that the fight goes as a whole. So, anything you want to add there, Timber? You're going to have to unmute yourself, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I got hungry. It happens. I haven't had dinner yet. No, it's just the the goal is not necessarily going to be DPS. I agree with Scott 100%. It is good to have a good damage output, especially if you're doing advanced content or elite content. But these free builds are also going to be able to help you breeze through normal content, the normal STFs and PvE queues and the missions. And it's gear that when it's put together, some people are going to be like, oh, you're using that? But when you're talking about a free build and you're maximizing what you can with a free build, it's going to make sense. I'll use a perfect example that I was showing someone for a free build the other day. The Jem'Hadar Resilient Shielding. It's got a 10% reduction to all energy damage. It has a reduction, I believe, to crew death. It's got nice stats for shields for free Mark 11s. And then your engine and deflector would come from the Breen set. It's got nice flow cap bonuses, and it also, as a two-piece set, has power transfer rate, which if you've listened to anything that Sarcasm Detector has done, he talks about how power transfer rate can increase your damage or your survivability, anything like that. So it comes built in. Now, it's not much, but for a free build, that is huge to have something built in like that. So it's just little things that you can throw together that you look at it and you're like, ew. But it's going to do better than you actually think.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things. I mean, you can find all sorts of things that will do what you need to do. Like if you want to go with the Polaron build, you can use like the Jem'Hadar set, which will give you a Polaron boost as a result. So that's some of the things to be thinking of there. You know, you got all sorts of different ways. For those of you who are looking for good bridge officers to use, and they, give you some ideas of what you can be doing. I mean, you got your there's a Delta mission that you can do. I think it's All Things That Sparkle or all something like that. That gives you a free hierarchy, or Mr. Potato Head as most people call him. And
yeah,
he's got the pirate trait that gives you a damage boost. And he's automatically coming with the Intel specs being able to learn. So you got that they can do. It's not the All Things That Glitter. It's the what is it? It's the either enemies in unusual places or the friends in unlikely places. One of the Delta ones.
He's because I've got him up right now. He gives 1.5% all damage. He improves stealth, which if you are using, let's say, a Romulan ship, that is nice. He also gives an efficient bonus for warp core efficiency. So you're getting a damage boost and a warp core efficiency boost. They're not humongous, but on something that you're not spending any money on, every little bit counts towards your survivability, your damage output, your healing, and that is a very nice free bridge officer for a free build. It's very nice.
Yeah. Answer a question. Neo, as far as the Fleet Advance Escort T6, this was changed the tact ensign to Universal Ensign. You can either bug that in, or in some cases, which is the crappy thing about the fleet ships, is sometimes you have to reclaim them to get the new things. But I would look into it first before you dismiss and reclaim. Who knows why it's not been changed? Because the Hestia is supposed to have been a universal ensign instead of the tactical ensign, because there was just an overkill on the ensign or on the tactical spots. So. But yeah, Mr. Potato Head here is a great one to use. That's a free duty officer that you can, or bridge officer, I mean, that you can get a hold of to use to help increase your damage that you're doing to things. There's also the Nazikin that you can get from your T4 engineering, excuse me, duty officers that you can be doing.
And so, if you're really looking at it, you can also pick up Saurians. They're the #1 bridge officers that you can find that also have efficient as a trait, and that's going to once again boost your warp core levels. Now, if you don't have an issue with power levels, then it's not going to be that big of a grab. But typically with free builds, you're not going to have a lot of consoles that are boosting all your power levels, or a plasmonic leech or something like that. So any amount of efficient to get your power levels higher is really good. So it's always wise to check the exchange for very cheap Saurians. Sometimes you can find one with efficient for 10 to 15,000 EC. It just depends. It honestly depends.
Yes, definitely. Sorry, just taking care of a spammer that came in.
Go right ahead, brother.
So, you know, the biggest problem that you're going to have to do for the engineering, and you see here, I haven't worked on this as much as I could have worked on it. It's still got about 50,000 before it's the rank 4. You know, it's one of those things that after you get to rank 4, if you haven't got it already, then it's something to be building up for. You get a purple quality duty officer. It's supposed to be a bridge officer, but for that engineering. But you know, it's one of those things that you can get the bridge officer that is great to use as a replacement. Oh no, it's not the engineering, it's the diplomacy. I'm sorry, giving you the wrong thing. The diplomacy is the one that we get the bridge officer, and you can select a bridge officer of any kind. Some people have gone with some Orion females, but you know, other people are going with the Nausicaan because of the damage increase that it does. And on a Federation captain, it is hugely critical, something you cannot get away without to increase your damage on any level. As a Romulan, you get all sorts of opportunities to get your superior Romulan operative and get that into a bridge layout. So it's very easy to stack out a Romulan captain for DPS for that reason alone, because they practically give you a full set of Romulan superior operatives throughout your course of leveling up alone. Something the Federations and even KDS I don't think get as many Nausicaans, but Nausicaans are very easy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things to be considering on your KDF. You definitely want to be looking at some of your different options. You know, if you happen to be like an Oxa battery build, there's missions all around that you can do to get a free technician. There's some of the duty officer assignments that you can do chains of, and on a critical success on some of these assignment chains, if I remember right, some of the critical successes on them can get you the technician and purple quality. So something to be aware of and alert of on that. Most of the duty officers, that's really good. You don't necessarily need, I mean, I will point out, say that my selection that I have here to do 30k DPS, you don't need any of them. You really don't need any of them. And I've had times when I've done 30 to 40k DPS and I have not had anything set up here. So that's some of the things to be thinking of, and you get a bunch of duty officers that are decent. If you're a torpedo, you obviously get Law, which is a free torpedo officer. So, and then you can get more officers that's good for torpedoes along the way, or through some of the duty officer assignments. So there's many different ways you get all your officers that you need for a build without having to spend millions and millions of EC to do it. So that's some of the things that we'll be doing on that today. We'll give you some ideas, hopefully, to how you can do some of this stuff. Look at your missions. You know, I'll include a link in here in the video that goes on YouTube that will also show you some of the different mission rewards that's out there and available. And you can really just go through that entire thing and you can pick out, like if you want a full set of phasers, there's missions that's got phaser Mark 12s that they offer as a reward. Most of the Delta ones, I believe, it was offering a phaser of some sort, if I remember right, or at least every other one. And we'll go through that real quick here. But I think some of them offered some sort of weapon that was good. So if you need a torpedo build, there's a torpedo, or a turret build, there's a turret that's good for it. AC times 2. Let's go into find some good one here. So if your torpedo, here's your warhead yield chamber. There you go. You get 5 of those. There's your an instant 18.8% torpedo damage increase. If you need to get yourself defense items, here you go. You got your neutronium Mark 12s. You can get a bunch of. Your field generators, if you want to increase your maximum shield capacity, here you go. You can get those, so you can have that to your benefit as well.
Which, disclaimer on those, just to be mindful, there's nothing wrong with stacking consoles. Just know, with the way the math works, there are diminishing returns for some of these things. For example, the neutronium armor, there is a diminishing return on using those. That's why with a lot of builds you see, if they're running something, they only run one, and they'll run other things on top of it. So it's just one of those things to be mindful of.
Yeah, and what's happening, I mean, everything that happens that you can actually stack up, it's not doing it to the final end game thing. It's doing it to what it would be at the base level. So, for example, your weapons on ground have a 300 max damage that they have on ground. So if you're getting 37% damage from a maxed out epic fleet Spire console, it's giving you the 37% of whatever that 300 is, and that's it. It's not giving you so like if the next one happens to be 337 after everything got said and done, it's not giving you 37% of that 337. It's just giving you that 300 max damage that it was doing. So it's doing it on the base damage for most cases. There's some damage out there that's doing it on the end damage, but that's what we call a Cat 2 modification that's going on, where it's doing it on something at the end. Most of the consoles are what's considered a Category 1 increase. So,
yeah.
And for those who like Tetrion like me, I love my Tetrions. Here's a Tetrion Beam Array that's ACC Crit times 2, Mark 13. So it gets you that much closer to your Mark 14 range. You know, I mean, there's so much of this stuff that you can find these. I mean, a regenerative shield array that's a Mark 12 that's got a increase in the regen and Tetrion damage bit. So
Now, do the Romulans have access to the Drozana mission that takes them back in time?
The Temporal Ambassador?
No, not Temporal Ambassador. It has to do with Drozana Station. I know it's available for Feds, and you go back to the 23rd century. It's a ground mission.
Everything old is new?
Yes, and it gives you a retrofit phaser. You can basically grind out retrofit phasers or standard phasers, which if you look at the modifications,
Crit
the retrofit
times 2.
You've got a crit D times 2, you've got a damage times 2, and then you got the retrofits. Any one of those 3 phasers are not bad at all for phaser builds. Now retrofits, well, because of the crit hit, I mean, you can use those if you don't have a lot of critical hit chance, whereas you can use the standard phaser beams that they have there as part of end-game sets, because they do have some of the mods that in-game builds would use. So there's 3 separate options there that you could carry all the way to your final build if you wanted to, and they're free. It's just a ground mission you have to grind out multiple times.
And this ground mission, for those who are not aware, this is a fairly easy one. And if you don't have a lot of crit in your setups, like Timmer was saying, you can actually get these damage times 2. Damage times 2 is a very viable weapon mod now. So you can get a bunch of damage times 2, and all of a sudden you got yourself a very decent weapon, even though they're very rare in the Mark 11s, you can hammer a couple upgrades at it to get up to Mark 12 at the very least, and voila, there you go. You got yourself a full ship set of damage times 2 weapons that you can get up to Mark 12 in like 3 or 4 upgrades at the. I think it's what it is.
Probably. And just as a disclaimer, don't worry about energy type. We're going to show you energy types of all different flavors. The energy types only matter when it comes to guys like us that want to max out builds, or someone like Odin or Valakin, Spencer, Snipey, because of what the proc modifier is.
Yes.
So that's the big thing. When it comes to just having a decent damage output, let's say you want to be able to at least do advanced content. Typically, if you want to have a team of 5, you want to have about 10k DPS output or higher to succeed the ISA map, just using that as an example, within the optional timer. You can do that with any energy type. It's simply what the proc does as far as its usefulness. Now, it's mostly considered the phaser proc is not as useful, but then again, nobody really has run those kind of setups, but it really does work, especially for a free build. I have a retrofit beam array build just for that reason, because it's still going to give me a lot of damage, and with the crit hit modifier that's on there, it's extra critical hit chance. The main reason I run it.
Yep. As far as the numerical superiority space trait, I haven't used it personally. There's some of the traits that I don't use, either because it didn't appeal to me at the least, or because I just never really had a purpose of throwing it into a build. Your traits, when it comes down to it, your traits that you're using shouldn't be what you build your ship around. Your traits is what you build to improve and enhance your ship. So
exactly,
that's the biggest things you got to remember, what you need to be doing with your traits. If your traits are not enhancing the ship you're using in some way, for example, if you're a DPS like me, let me show you one of the best ones if you can get a hold of it. Alright, if you can get a hold of it, one of the best traits to get a hold of is this invincible trait as a DPS guy. What happens here is when you get below 5% hull, everything basically cannot kill you for 8 seconds. You have 50% incoming healing to yourself going on, and 50% incoming shield healing, and then you can also use this as a means to get what's called a 0% GDF, or go down fighting, so you can really increase your damage completely there. So
yeah,
that's one of the things. I mean, you do your traits and your personal traits and your space reputations to enhance what your ship is capable of doing, and if it works, use it. If someone else is saying, well, that's a crappy trait, like, I wouldn't have had some of these other traits if I didn't even play the ships, in some cases, enough to get them. And I've used every single one of these in some degree or shape and fashion, like the warp shadow decoy. That was a fun one to use. So it's one of those that you use based upon what makes your ship better. Supremacy gives you the power levels that you need. If I'm understand, it's got a few issues going on where it's giving you more power than it should be. But go ahead, tell me, you're about to say something.
And all I was going to say is don't worry about traits if you're going for free builds. Traits will come.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the best ones either cost a lot of Zen, a lot of Lobby, or a lot of EC. The big one that I use for what I've called a glass tank, or for tanks in general, since I am starting a tanking series, Attack Pattern Delta Prime. That particular trait is, if you get hit by a target, it increases your crit chance and your crit severity up up to, I believe, 10% crit chance and 25% crit severity.
Yep.
And
As
the
well
other,
as well as the delta attack pattern debuffing the target.
yeah, so it's a debuff and a buff along with crit chance and crit severity with that trait. The other trait typically run with that is reciprocity, which when you're missed, it cools down your tactical and intel abilities. Both of those are very expensive traits. One requires a starship if you're Fed side, or if you're a Romulan or KDF, it requires a box. The other one is from the duty officer packs, and that can go for a lot of money on the exchange too. So it's those, your traits are typically stuff you save up for. But a lot of times with free builds, you can do very well with just the proper skill set, the proper just the gear that you can get for free, and then experimenting with your specialization trees.
Yep. Yeah, if you get your specialization trees, you get the traits that are really good on that. You get personal. I mean, there's some personal traits out there that you can get for yourself that's free, that is very good to use as well. I mean, you can work on your R&D. You can do a couple missions to get some traits like point blank. There's also a good defense one that you can get from that. So you got things like that. I mean, improved pedal to metal is nothing to shake your nose at if you're looking for DPS improvement. I mean, that's a huge one right there.
Yeah, you got improved predictive algorithms, improved pedal to the metal, improved command frequency. One of the mission rewards is the best defense, which when you activate attack pattern beta, delta, or omega, you get 26.4% hull healing as an increase. And then you've also got, there was one other that just came out. You've got the personal trait point blank shot. There's a lot of free things out there that a lot of people, I guess the best term is, sleep on, because they are not good for in-game builds. But when you're building for free, you're just trying to make for sure you have a build that's solid to get you the in-game set, and it's going to hold off for a long time. Some of these free traits that they give away are amazing.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing.
And to go back on what a glass tank is, so he's talking about his tactical odyssey that he has, and what he does, instead of putting the nullifier science embassy consoles onto his ship,
I'm crazy.
He's putting the amplifiers onto that ship. He's dropping everything that might potentially heal, and he has a healer that's going around healing him up, and everything he has deals damage in some way. So that is what he's talking about with glass tank. He literally can die in an instant if he doesn't have someone healing him.
Yeah, I'm very crazy, and it was just a test to see if it works. Fortunately, with all of the healing abilities that have come into the game, we actually have seen healers be able to do 10k heal points per second, which with all these abilities, you can have a healer on a team and you never die. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can never die. So it was just testing the tanking, some of the tanking abilities that are in this game, and primarily testing healing abilities that are currently available as part of free sets, one of which is the Soul Defense set, which was used.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things like that. I mean, shoot, one of the consoles that I have right now on my ship is the Temporal Disentanglement Suite, which is a science console, and that's a free console that you can get without having to spend any money on. Yes, I spent EC to get this console up, or not EC, EC in Dilithium to get it up to the Epic level, but it's not necessary, because the main things that I look at using on that, which happens to be the critical chance and critical severity, don't go up as you level this thing up. So, you know, so there's many of these things that you can be looking at doing to increase yourself without having to spend a whole lot of anything on. I mean, the point blank shot here, if you love cannons, I recommend highly, highly that you get this point blank shot, because that's going to help make up for some of your drop in damage that you have. Now you have to be like 6 kilometers within the distance at the max, but that gives you a lot closer to being what the cannon can do at the most. and that can make your cannon builds come up a lot further because of that alone. Um, so that's some things. I mean, you don't need inspirational leader to do DPS. Is it worth it? Yeah, I would say so, but it's not worth 300 million EC that it is right now.
And it just for what it gives nowadays, you can find abilities that are a lot cheaper or combinations of gear that can make up for not having inspirational leader, and then still have a personal trait slot. Especially considering its price. Dear God, I cannot believe people will still want to sell it for that much, and it's not that useful. For the price, it's not that useful at
Yeah,
all.
I will put that out there. It is one of those things. Many of the skills that I have here, you can live without. I mean, the Ramelin Operative, that's a part of being a Ramelin. Anchored, you can live without. You really can. I mean, you're giving up your resistance to get a little bit more damage boost to your ship. So that's one of the things that if you found something to live without, I mean, you see most of my traits that I have here, only four of them I've spent AC on. You got the Blade of Shell, which is a great heal, but it's not necessary.
No.
Everything I have here is really not necessary to having to have to use. I could, I mean, you can really make use out of if you're a torpedo, you got the accurate that could be good for the torpedoes to make sure that they hit every single time they shoot out.
This is true.
So if you're a turret, I mean, you definitely make use of the cannoneer ability. So be thinking about what these free things have and that can offer, because really can increase yourself. If you're a tank, guess what? The elusive increases your defense. You can make yourself a decent tank without having to spend millions of EC on it. So that's some of the things you're going to be seeing us throwing out here. We're going to try and get you a couple builds for this next week from our free build setup. So be looking forward to that and expect that. We'll be spending the next week here trying to get it. And our goal is to make sure that these builds are not just doing 10k DPS, but we're going to try and see if they can get us 30k ourselves.
Now, and not only that, I want to make for sure that I'm not dying at all. I'm going to make for sure they are 100% survival base.
Yep.
Because that is another big thing.
Especially on a tank setup. You know, we want to make sure that if we give you a tank, we don't want to give you a tank setup that's going to kill you in 2 shots. But, you know, so that's some of the things to be looking at and expecting. I mean, if you look at my stuff that I have, you'll see many of these expensive traits that I no longer use at all.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, it really is. I can't use half these traits, and I love them all. Well, I don't use them all. And it's just because of one factor. They're not necessary. I mean, give you an idea in this ship here with this setup. This setup here, exactly as it is right now, did 102k DPS. That was even pushing it.
You alright, brother?
Yeah, I just had a cough there. Sorry, I muted it on what went out. But so without pushing it, this setup did 102k DPS. If I throw in my Tetrion build, that one did 80k DPS without pushing it. And there's much higher results that I can be pulling out of this if I really pushed these builds. I'm not a mad DPS guy. I don't want to be at the top anymore. I don't care to be at the top. I used to be number 8 for a long while. And I just don't care. I mean, the only thing I had to worry about was keeping my spot, and after a while, who cares?
Yeah, it does get old after a while. I mean, I'll say for a while there, I was chasing the top end. You know, anything goes. But now it's like, all right, what can I do different? Can I tank and still have just decent amounts? Can I heal? Can I do this? Can I throw together a build that no one else would think of and still be able to do the content without having to worry about anything? So I basically can say we evolved our playstyle, because we've already done some things and it's time to try new things.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know some of the crazy things that we've done, you can look at one of my videos that I have. Um, some of these ships that I have are actual builds that I've thrown together and done. All right, um, and they're not just there because they're placeholders. I've actually have used some of these setups exactly as they are. Um, this one here obviously missing a couple weapons that I've thrown onto other captains. But you know, you can have yourself a little bit of fun while doing something completely crazy and different. Um, I have a theory that I've been working on using the Ramen plasma weapons because I want to see those make their way back into usefulness again because I see use in them. And they're my favorite weapons that I've had before the changing the DPS tactics of stuff. So there's so many different ways you can take some of these ships and these weapons that you can really let your mind go to it. I mean, here I have a Tetrion build with a torpedo on it. Um, and here's a AP with a torpedo setup. So you know,
Hashtag Torp Life.
yep. And here's one that's a um, dual beam banks with a torpedo in the back, or in the front, in the back, and a mine in the back, the Nukara web mine. So you know that's just throwing imagination and letting it do whatever it can do. And this one here was doing about 30 to 40k DPS by itself. So, you know, there's many different ways you can do all the things that some of the other top players do. You don't have to necessarily get this to do your 100k DPS or even do the 30k DPS that you're trying to do. It's going to come down to your piloting in every single case, in every single scenario. Your piloting is what's going to make you or break your ship. And I will say that over and over again. Here's a Jemadari that was with a dual heavy cannon setup. And one of my favorite, wait, maybe not. It doesn't have my favorite cannon weapon that I've worked very hard to get a hold of. These are fun ones here. These crit D times 3 rapids. I mean, there's some amazing things you can do with your weapons if you have the willingness to look at it. Quad cannons. You can make quad cannon builds that are actually very good now.
Yep. You can still use Mirror Universe ships. That's going to be one of the things that I know we're going to highlight is the Mirror Universe ships. Now, they're tier 5, but they are technically considered the low tier 5 because of their missing consoles compared to other ones. But if you look at some of those setups for those tier 5 Mirror Universe ships, you can do some pretty amazing things with them with all the stuff that's in the game now. You'd be actually surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easily um, to do things that you want to be accomplishing. Here it is, my Elachi dual heavy crescent weapons. So, you know, it's just a matter of how you want to look at doing your ship. Um, you don't have to be getting these rep weapons like I have here. You don't have, or I should say, lockbox weapons, because that's where these come from. You can totally pull together ship reward weapons and upgrade along the way. And you know, for those of you who happen to have fleet gear that's been sitting
Fleet
around,
Gear's amazing.
yes, fleet gear has become a lot better. I mean, the fleet weapons used to be used to go with either the ACC times 2 crit D or the um, damage times 3 crit D weapons. Damage times 3 crit D is a very viable weapon now because of the because of what they did with the damage modifier. So if you have the credit, the fleet credit in the dilithium to get them, you can definitely make use out of them. Don't sell them, don't sell those weapons cheap because of what they have been classified in the past. But I mean, they've got so dropped down in what they were capable of doing that it was insane just thinking of using them at 0 point in time. I mean, every time someone says, "Hey, I'm using fleet weapons here," get away from them, get away from them, get away from them.
Yeah. It was like a plague at one point.
It was. Everyone was using fleet weapons just to the extreme, and so we would tell these people, get away, get away, get away, run as fast as you can, because those are complete utter trash. Um, and at that point they were. I mean, damage times 3 was not worth getting for the mods. Now,
Whereas now they are one of the best in the game, which is just a humongous change for people that have kept those weapons.
yeah, you want to talk about a complete 360-degree turn? That was one weapon that did a 360-degree turn.
And it's in all 6 of the major flavors, if you call it. So you can have good Tetrion, Plasma, Polaron, Disruptor, Anti-Proton, and Phaser weapons at the fleet level that are relatively inexpensive compared to crafted weapons or lockbox weapons, and they're going to last you a long time for that investment, and I mean a long time.
Yep. I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. You ready to do an ISA here?
Hold on, let me get out of this mission.
Had to think about it.
I've been in the middle of a Breen mission. While we're talking about it, I'm collecting the Breen set, the Jem'Hadar set. I've got the Soul Defense set ready. Probably get the Dyson set just so we can keep showing them off.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, we have to do so many different missions to get this gear, so we can make sure that they actually work like we can expect them to. And
I'm telling you, I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking a hybrid Breen Jem'Hadar with the temporal set from the new missions. You know, the core and the console.
Yep.
I'm seeing some nastiness there. I'm gonna have to play with it. All right, let me beam up. I'll have to replay this here in a minute.
Yeah, give me a second. I got my scimitar ready real quick.
But it's one of those things, I will say, it's more exciting to theory craft and do some of these builds with limitations to push the limits than it was to just go for high end. I mean, honestly, me and Scott can tell you, we did the ultimate low DPS challenge. That was immensely more fun to see just how low we could go with these DPS runs than it was to max out, because when you're maxing out, you're concentrating. You're like, oh my god, I'm 0.2 seconds off, and you get frustrated. Whereas everything else that we're doing now, not only is it a challenge, but it's amazingly fun by comparison. And that's one reason why I'm glad we're doing these free builds. We're exploring science and tanking, because you can let loose and have fun with these builds and still be effective. It's not at the entry levels for all of them. It's more about learning it, and while you're learning it, you're having fun. It's only at the high end, when you're trying to heavily refine the build, that's when it starts to get, okay, I've got to be serious.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you have to. I mean, we had to work to get the what was it, 0.58?
Yeah, 0.58 DPS. But let me tell you, I was going nuts in the TeamSpeak that night. I was. So far, no one's beat me. I'm kind of proud of that record, actually.
You know, it probably took a little more thinking than anything else, because it wasn't. You couldn't just go in there and blast away. I mean, you had to actually be thinking how you were going to do it.
Yeah, how do you stay in combat but have the most minimal of damage? And that was tough. And I think I can go lower and do less while still being effective in that run, but that's going to be tough. But I just think it's funny. I still hold that record. No one has tried to beat it yet. That's what I think is funny.
And I think what we'll do is we'll do a quick little pug action here, the two of us at least.
All right, and what ship are you bringing this time?
I got the scimitar.
All right.
Decided to do something different. Scimitar with Tetrion weapon.
Oh.
Sure.
Well, let me, for old time's sake, I'm going to switch back to my flow caps build. Because why not?
Yes. Alright, here we go. And after this, we're going to probably, I think we're going to wrap it up here. after this, so I can A, go do some college work that I need to get done tonight, and B, might
Collect
take,
gear.
yeah, well, collect gear for timber, and I'm literally hopping off and gonna let you all get back to your evenings here. Um, so let's go ahead and queue up here. So if you're out there and you want to join us, make sure that queue up and for ISA, and you'll be able to come join us. Or maybe not.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at something that somebody commented on one of my videos that I just posted. It has nothing to do with STO, so we'll talk about that in another video. uh,
Alright.
oh, wait a minute.
We,
Oh, what? What? Oh, okay. Maximizing. Let's make this interesting, Scott. Let's go right.
Alright, sounds good.
Let's go. What's the worst that can happen, honestly? How? Yep. Alright. Still too squishy. I'm gonna have to work on that. I'll switch in another shield heal.
Yeah.
Did we fail? Oh, we failed. Oh well. It can happen.
Yeah, it's one of those, it happens.
And we are four-manning this run.
And I did notice that my skills are a little bit messed up.
Which I'm going to go ahead and say, I apologize to the two pug people that are in here with us, Richard Sand and Ramosek. Yeah, we apologize. You probably were not ready for what us coming in here and doing this, so I will apologize for that. Jeez, something's hitting me tough.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Oh, I know what it is. Because I'm not doing max DPS anymore. I gotta switch out Anchored. That's what's doing it. I don't need Anchored anymore. I gotta think more like a tank for self-survival.
Yep, and then we'll go down again.
That's okay, I'll keep up the threat.
Look at all that chemo.
I know, good. That's one thing I will tell everybody right now. I cannot wait till Chemosite is fixed. It's one of those things, like, please fix now. Don't wait for Season 11. Don't wait for Season 10.99 or whatever you're waiting it on. Just go ahead and fix it. It's atrocious. Like, I shouldn't have Chemosite proccing at all, and it's proccing. Like, it's not activated.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is doing it when it's not supposed to be doing it.
Because I'm all about, on some of my builds, maxing out my damage capacity. But let's not have it where the abilities are broken. Alright, probably going to get a lot of hate now. We've got Intel Fleet and TAC Fleet up.
Okay. This is a torpedo spread is about ready to go out.
Alright, Fa 3 is up. This is going to be my first time actually willingly getting to activate Go Down Fighting as my mouse goes haywire. There we go. Getting there. Getting there.
And I have to apologize, a lot of my tray was messed up. I normally would start off with a cloak, or have a cloak ready to go. And it's down to just 3 of us in here now.
That's fine. We're still gonna win. I love a challenge. Quite honestly, Scott, I think that's one of the things that it's one of those things that me and you have yet done on either one of our channels. Solo ISA runs.
I've done it solo.
Oh, you have?
I don't think I haven't uploaded it. See,
yeah, I don't think I have yet. So I'm gonna have to do that as a challenge just to see. Ow. Just see if I can solo it. That is a definite challenge because you have to mix your survivability with your damage output. So I gotta see if I can really do that.
Yep, I know I can do it. And I didn't do it in my scimitar, which I probably should do sometime. I did it in a pilot ship, and that took me 22 minutes, which I will say I am not used to the pilot ship and how it works. So probably my next thing I'll do is do it with the scimitar and then the Quintum Dreadnought, just to see how that...
I feel bad for Ceton. He just joined the match as we finished. I hope he doesn't get the lever penalty.
Hopefully not.
Well, not bad. I know I didn't parse that, but that was fun.
I didn't parse it either, so...
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I don't parse, and it's just... I don't care to, you know? I mean... that one started off with a very quick start to things. Someone that apparently had started the match and pulled in the cube and the spears to...
and left.
Yeah. So.
Which we do know, I know it happens. Anybody out there, don't do that. I mean, if you're wanting to do a run where you're trying to test something on the opening bit and it doesn't go right, at least tell somebody beforehand. If you're going to pug it, do your best not to do that on a pug run. It's not very courteous, because while there's no harm in testing your abilities, it's best to do them in pre-organized runs, so that way they all know, okay, I'm just testing my opening spike and then we're warping. That way it can be a private run where you don't have a penalty for leaving early. Whereas in a pug run, you leave early and you're gimping the team, because if they don't complete it, then they get the lever penalty for an hour and they're stuck with just waiting. Yep. So it's just courtesy. If you're testing a spike, that's fine. Just, you don't want to gimp your team if you're going to do a pug life. You want to make for sure you're very courteous of your other players, so that you're doing right, not just for yourself, but for everybody that's playing the game.
Yep. And to answer the question as far as how to stay alive without shield hills, shield hills won't do you one bit of good if you have 0 hull.
Yeah.
And especially with these, with the Borg have the tachyon emit or tachyon beam where it drains your shields. What good does shield hills have when your shield could be down at the time, anyways?
Plus, as a side note, at the end, when you've got to the final phase, you've got the tac cube and the gateway. Be mindful of where you're placing your biomolecular shield. Now, the reason I say that, especially in a pug run, if you pop your biomolecular shield too close to the gate, and you're attacking the gate, and you've got the threat from the gate, it does a tachyon beam on your shields. However, the tachyon beam is typically not as strong as your biomolecular shield heal. So what it ends up being is an infinite heal, but healing is a part of threat calculations. So technically, if you've got the infinite tachyon beam from that gateway, you're gaining threat as you're attacking it, which will make it all the targets want you more. And that might be where some people have died in pug runs and are trying to figure out why. Pop the biomoleculars far away from that gateway as possible if you do not want to have unwanted threat.
Yeah, definitely. So, thank you all for joining. That is it for this episode of the Pilot Review Show. We're going to call it a night here. We'll be on again next Saturday. We'll probably be doing something between now and next weekend, because if what I think is coming, it's going to be a fun week. So
this is true.
As far as Stay Alive, what I do is not. I don't use Oxus stuff. If you saw what I have, it's a miniature powered weapons that I have 2 times with a Dem 1 on that particular setup. I use Bracer Impact in the subspace modulator to help stay alive for the kinetic damage. So, and then I use shield healing, and then I also have on this particular build out, I have this little baby right here, which is the regenerative integrity field, which because of how much damage I do, I get healed up instantly to full. But it's only it's got a 2-minute cooldown on it. So, anyways, going on. Thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate it. I got schoolwork I gotta go do. Get a bunch of stuff done tonight before it becomes midnight and I turn into a pumpkin. So, couldn't resist. All my homework's due at midnight. So, so have fun, everyone. We'll see ya on the flip side.
See you guys.